Welcome to Bible Study with Fred. I'm going to read from the King James Version this morning, from Genesis 41:33 to 45, and comment on it. Now, you can read other comments I've made on blogger.com, Blogspot, or just follow me here. Uh, Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the fifth part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. Let them gather all the food of those years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let him keep food in the cities. And that food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, Can we find such a one as this, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, For as much as God has showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, See, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand, and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had, and they cried before him, Bow the knee. And he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath Paneah. And he gave to him Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On. And Joseph went out all over all the land of Egypt. Excuse me. Joseph made a final recommendation to Pharaoh, not meaning to suggest himself a lowly prisoner in the king's dungeon, a foreigner sold into slavery there. Someone wise and discreet should rule under Pharaoh's authority. Here's our first example of government being used to serve the needs of the state apart from war. The Pharaoh is to take 20% of the land so that wheat can be stored up during the good years to prepare for the lean years to come. This tax was for the benefit of the people and the security of the state when the famine would come. Corn is a British reference to a seed of any cereal grass, notably wheat, and expands to be a reference to the plant itself. John 12:24. Verily, verily, I say unto you, except a corn of wheat fall into the ground and die, it abideth alone, but if it die, it bringeth forth much fruit. See how our Bible is written below in this and next in this verse's parallel phrasing, defining corn as wheat. Amos 8:5. Saying, When will the new moon be gone, that we may sell corn, and the Sabbath, that we may sell forth wheat, making the ephah small and the shekel great, and falsifying the balances by deceit? Government for the welfare of the people is mentioned in Paul's letters to the Christian in Rome. In fact, it is the only mandate listed in Paul's letters for human government, to punish evildoers. As said before, evil is usually a reference to malice or malicious, violent intent. Again, here in Paul, taxes are mentioned, paying tribute. Romans 13:1 to 6. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power resisteth the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have promise of the praise of the same. For he is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain. For he is a minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Wherefore you must needs be subject, not only for wrath, but also for conscience sake. For this cause pay ye tribute also, for they are God's ministers, attending continually upon this very thing. Jesus himself acknowledged that paying taxes to your government is a good testimony. Matthew 17:24 to 27. And when they were come to Capernaum, they that received the tribute money came to Peter and said, Doth not your master pay tribute? He saith, Yes. And when he was come into the house, Jesus prevented him, saying, What thinkest thou, Simon? Of whom do the kings of the earth take custom or tribute? Of their own children or of strangers? Peter saith unto him, Of strangers. Jesus saith unto him, Then are the children free. Notwithstanding, lest we should offend them, go thou to the sea, and cast an hook, and take up the fish that first cometh up. When thou hast opened his mouth, thou shalt find a piece of money. That take and give unto them from me and thee. I assure you that the Roman government referred to in the previous two passages was not a Christian or a righteous government, but government has a mandate, and as we know, the power to tax is the power to govern. Pharaoh acknowledges that the Spirit of God, the very mind of God, is in Joseph. Here, typology implies that Pharaoh is in type God the Father, and here Joseph is a type of Christ or God in the flesh, issuing from God and possessing his authority. All ability, power, and authority, even to that to do evil, comes from God. Nothing can be done without his permissive will or his direct will. John 19:11. Jesus answered, Thou couldst have no power at all except against me, except it were given from thee from above. Therefore he that delivered me unto thee hath the greater sin. But Christ, as God in the flesh, or the Son of God, comes in God the Father's authority. John 5:18. Therefore the Jews sought the more to kill him, because he not only had broken the Sabbath, but said also that God was his Father, making himself equal with God. Philippians 2:6. Who being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God. And in fact, to have seen him is to have seen God the Father. John 14:9. Jesus saith unto him, Have I been so long time with you, and hast thou not known me, Philip? He that has seen me has seen the Father. And how sayest thou then, Show us the Father? John 10:30. I and my Father are one. Then the Jews took up stones again to stone him. Jesus answered them, Many good works have I showed you from my Father. For which of these works do you stone me? The Jews answered him, saying, For a good work we stone thee not, but for blasphemy, because that thou, being a man, makest thyself God. John 12:45. And he that seeth me seeth him that sent me. So in this passage in Genesis, we have a picture, a type of God the Father and the Son of God, as Pharaoh gives Joseph his own ring, his own authority and power over Egypt. To see Joseph was to see the Pharaoh, and Joseph carried all of the power and authority of Pharaoh. For such a thing to happen, this could only have been God's direct will. Do you see how many things he allowed the men and women of this narrative so far to do, and how he molded and shaped those things, no matter what their intentions, good or evil, into his plans, his ministry of reconciliation toward mankind? The priesthood of Egypt was a powerful class whom the Pharaoh would want on his side, and having Joseph marry one of their daughters was an astute political move. And this we can speak in type of how God drew Abraham from the Gentiles to create a people for himself, for Joseph's offspring would be among God's chosen. On was a city that became known as Heliopolis, city of the sun. On is said by some authorities to be the birthplace of Egyptian mythology. It was the first capital of Egypt and the place where the Egyptian myth said that creation itself took place. It is here that the great sun god, Ra or Atum, self created God, was to have arisen from the Ben Ben stone in the great temple to light up a dark universe. He was the source of all other gods, and people themselves were born from his tears. It is of no little significance that God arranged for a priest daughter of this city and this god to be married to Joseph. God drew mankind away from the darkness of paganism and chose Egypt's greatest god's priest daughter to be the vessel through whom would come two tribes of the Hebrews, Ephraim and Manasseh. We will learn how troublesome they were. Strong's dictionary says that Joseph's Egyptian name means treasury of the glorious rest. We will receive new names from God. Revelation 2:17. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. Sorry. To him that overcometh will I give to eat of the hidden manna, and I will give him a white stone and a stone the new name written, and which no man knoweth saving he that receiveth it. So one thing I want to point out here is there are some false interpretations of the Bible that have come out in the last couple hundred years. Well, actually, all through European history. Just because God mentions something in the Bible and doesn't condemn it outright does not mean that it is good, or does not mean that it is something that he wants, or it's his part of his perfect will. So if you start going through the Bible and taking things and trying to apply them out of context to current times or your life without being very careful about the context and cross-referencing, then you know men like to conservative Christian men like to have this thing about how their wives should walk 5 steps behind them, never question them, and do what they're told. Barefoot and pregnant and all the old stereotypes. But yet they don't look at this and say, oh, well, here's our mandate for government. They should take everything and let us keep a little bit to survive. That's not the way you interpret the Bible. That creates a tyranny. And no American is going to interpret the Bible that way. So be careful when you look at these things and see them for what they are, the examples they are that are set, what they're trying to tell us. But be careful about taking something that applied to a certain place and time specifically and saying, because God didn't condemn it, we can apply it to ourselves, literally, because you get in a lot of hot water that way, and you'll in the dangers of tyranny and evil are great. That's how you misinterpret the Bible and twist it. So some leftists could come along and say, see, here's an example for us for government. This is what government should do. Well, no, That's not true. So keep that, think about that as you're reading these. So we're going to go on and continue to what Joseph does next. Thank you very much for listening.